When's the right time to start thinking about selling your construction business? Maybe you've assumed that's something you'll figure out when the time comes, or maybe you're convinced you'll never sell at all. But here's the reality. One day, your business will either be sold, passed down, or shut down. And if you don't plan for that now, you might be leaving a lifetime of hard work with zero value when you're ready to step away. Hey, you're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast, where it's all about systematizing your construction business to eliminate chaos and maximize profit, freedom, and impact. My name is Todd Dawalt. I'm the host and the founder here, and my team and I have helped over 400 construction companies eliminate chaos, grow their profits, and grow their team and build a business that doesn't rely on them to function. Today on the show, we're diving into a critical question, which is what makes a construction business sellable? And why does it matter, even if you never plan to sell? Maybe a better question is what makes a construction business unsellable? To help us answer that, we're joined by CEO Alliance member Mark Powers, who's a construction business owner and investor who has successfully acquired multiple companies, including 2 marine contracting businesses in Florida. He's here to share what makes a business valuable, the biggest pitfalls to avoid when buying and selling, and the steps you need to take now to ensure that your company can thrive without you. Here's what you're going to learn about in this episode: why so many construction businesses are unsellable and how to fix that, the key factors that determine what your business is worth, how to structure your company so it can run smoothly without you, and some pitfalls to avoid when buying a business. You'll learn from Mark, who has done this several times. And you'll learn about a hidden risk that most business owners never think about, one that can leave your employees, your family, and your legacy in jeopardy if you don't take action. So if you want to build a business that works for you instead of the other way around, and build a business that you can sell one day or transfer to your family or to your employees, be sure to stick around for this entire episode of the Construction Leading Edge podcast. Now let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Mark Powers. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here, Todd.
We're going to be talking about buying businesses, selling businesses, what are some of the pitfalls to avoid, and then I think we have some really important stuff to cover for people who are thinking about selling their business someday, maybe even more important for people who aren't thinking about selling their business someday. We'll get to that before we're done. Let's jump into this. You've acquired several businesses. You've acquired a couple of construction businesses. So tell us a little bit about the construction businesses you've acquired.
The first one I acquired is a marine contracting business in Southwest Florida. Basically, we do docks, seawalls, and boat lifts, 2021. And then the second acquisition was a competitor of mine in the same market doing the same work, and I acquired that business in late 2023.
What are the most important things to consider when acquiring a business?
The first thing, of course, are the numbers. A lot of people like to look at gross revenue and think that that's the key to every business. If it's doing $5 million, it's a good business. But after you dig into it a little bit deeper, you're going to find, the bottom line is actually the reality of whether a business is good or not. Profit is, the reality. So people like to say, hey, I have a $20 million business, but what do they make at the end of the day? You could have a business that, does a tenth of that and makes more money. So who has the better business? That piece of it is an extreme important, not only for the business to operate and continue to operate, but it's also important if you're looking for financing or how are you going to pay for the business? Most businesses, at least I don't use a lot of my personal cash to acquire businesses. I use debt. And that's, of course, falls into the numbers have to make sense. So that's a big part of it. Another part for me is who is the seller? What do you buy? Who are you buying from? Why are they selling? And what's their character? That's an important piece for me as well. Getting to know that seller and getting, behind the scenes to see why they're selling.
Why is it important to you to know why they're selling?
For me, it is a tell if they're selling at a younger age, and I'm going to use age as the deciding factor, or if they're selling at a retirement age. most people, at a younger age, what's the reason behind it? I want to retire young usually, but that might be an underlying issue to show that the business actually doesn't operate well or isn't doing, it just raises a flag for me. It might be a pitfall. Whereas, the two contracting businesses I acquired, both gentlemen selling the businesses were past retirement age. So that's, they were late 60s, early 70s. So that's the boomer generation that's leaving, the workforce. And, they have a good business, but they're just tired and burnt out and want to, spend their time with the grandkids. So to me, doesn't raise a red flag, whereas someone that's much younger might raise a red flag for me.
Let's talk about how to value a business. So how do you think about valuation of a business and coming up with a purchase price and what the business is worth?
So there's different ways to value a business. You can look at, SDE, seller discretionary earnings, which is, profit plus salary, owner salary plus discretionary spendings, meals out, insurances, their wife being paid but not working for the company, those things, all these add backs. So you have those, you could do that. Or EBITDA, which adds back, expenses, taxes, interest, all of that, amortization, depreciation, to have a number. And then there's industry standards for multiples, which is kind of open for interpretation. In a smaller business, I would look at a smaller multiple because there's not a lot of meat on the bone, if you will. So you're looking, at a sub 2 times SDE, 2 to 3, maybe, if it's a good business and has, opportunity there. And then as you get into larger businesses, 5 million, 10 million plus in revenue, your multiple increases at that point. You're looking at a 3, 4, 5 multiple. And then as you get even bigger, you get 25 plus million, the multiples are, 6, 7. And those are just, you can research that online and find industry standards. So, but what I find within the contracting world, that's where they fall, depending on the volume of work.
I think some people may overvalue what their business is worth. They think, well, I have a $5 million a year business. It must be worth about $5 million a year, $5 million in revenue. But what you're saying is, if you have a $5 million a year business and your, let's say, SDE or EBITDA is 500,000, so you're netting 10%, then you're saying that business is worth probably 2 to 3 times that. So 1 million to 1.5 million, somewhere in that range?
Yeah. Yep. That would be an industry standard.
That's one of the factors in coming up with the valuation of a business. What else are you looking at? Maybe the qualitative things that can't necessarily be measured that would affect the value of a business.
It could be location. It could be the industry, competition. I mean, all of those factors, marketing, market share. For me, acquiring the second business was a strategic buy for me. So that business had more value to me than it would have to an individual who's coming and buying his first company. So I paid a higher multiple for my second business than I did for my first, just for that reason, because it's a strategic buy for me. And there's a term that's used that they talk about multiple arbitrage, which means because I'm combining the two businesses into one, I just took the smaller business and brought it up to that multiple of the larger business when I bought it. So it's almost instant increase in value. It's the private equity methodology of having a platform business and acquiring multiple add-ons to build up a bigger business. So when you start with a $5 million business, but you add on 6 other businesses, so now you have 7 businesses, their combined revenue is 50 million. Your multiple there is now, instead of a 3, 4, is now a 8 to 10. So you increase that. As the numbers get higher, your multiple goes up. And you have more financial buyers and strategic buyers at that point. So your pool of buyers changes.
Let's go back to your background. You have acquired a few businesses in other industries, and you spent quite a bit of time previous in your career in something other than construction. Let's go back and talk about your career a little bit. What does your career look like, and what led you to this point where you acquired a marine business?
Well, I started, swinging a hammer when I was a teenager. So construction was the start, when I started young. I went through the laborers union. Went to school at night, got my, ended up getting my degree much later in life, but in construction management. But then I was working for a construction management firm in my mid-20s, a large international construction management firm, which then led me into the real estate development world. A client of mine poached me to come work for him in New York City as an owner's rep. So I went to New York City to work for him, to do a big development for him in New York City. And I got the real estate bug at that point. That was about 2003. I went to New York City to do that. So I got into the real estate development world and decided to, stick in that world for a few years until the market collapsed. In 2008, 2009, I became a partner in a big project, and that dried up. So I was basically, 2008 was sitting at home wondering what I was going to do with my life. And because I had the construction background, that was the easiest thing for me to do, is get back into construction. So I went back into construction management, working for a couple CM firms in the Boston area. From there, I decided I didn't want to be an employee anymore. So I ventured off and acquired a piece of property that actually had a restaurant on it, a little fry shack in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So in June of 2010, I packed up my car and drove up there, and I ran a fry shack for a year. Baptism by fire. I don't recommend the restaurant business for anybody. It's extremely difficult, and the seasonality of it up there was extremely difficult as well. So that's for the next, from 2010 till 2018, I acquired another restaurant in the area and the real estate as well for that. And I had a business partner in that, and who I am no longer business partners with. So you can read between the lines on that one. And then the reason I got into, long story to get to the point of buying the contracting businesses, I sold out my shares and all of my interests with my business partner because we had a separation, a divorce, and I decided to semi-retire and take a couple of years off. So that lasted about a year. And of course, the wonderful world of the internet, started looking to see what I could do next. Came across, looking in construction just because that's my background, the wisest thing for me to do because I know the most about it. So I came across the listing just on a business for sales website and called the broker, got some information on the company. And a week later, I was in San Diego at the time, hanging out at the beach. I drove across the country and met with the owner. And that was the start of my marine contracting career, which I'm into now, my 5th year.
A lot of people tend to go right back to, when they think about business ownership, they go do what they did as an employee. In other words, a lot of people would say, well, Mark, it seems like you should have started or bought a construction management firm like you were familiar with. I'm curious, how did you decide on marine construction and the Southwest Florida market?
So I don't know who said it, but they say, do what you love, and it's not a job. So I actually enjoy construction. I enjoy building things and, that whole part of the business. And I love the ocean. I love being on the water, whether it's boating, anything to do, surfing, kite surfing, all of those fun things. So when I saw a marine contractor, I never thought about it before having seen it. I didn't even know it existed. But in Florida, it's a very prevalent industry because of the coastlines and the amount of boating and canals and inlets that are here. So that's, location-wise, it was the business that brought me here. I never thought I'd live in Florida, maybe when I was 90, but not, at a younger age. This is where people come to retire and, heaven's waiting room. So
let's talk about this. What are some of the pitfalls to watch out for when considering acquiring a construction business? What would you say are if you use the 80-20 principle, 80% of the risk comes from 20% of these sources. What would you say are the 20% of risks people should really focus on?
How is the business being run by the seller is a key to knowing how the business will continue to be run. Because the culture that you're buying a culture, and what that business has for a reputation. You can do, look at Google reviews, you can meet with the staff, you can see how they interact, you can see if people are happy there, those type of things. So that's, you got to watch out for the pitfalls, because if you walk into a business as a new owner, who's to say everyone's not going to leave? And it's a risk, but you can calculate that risk and minimize it just by knowing. Again, it goes back to the seller and who the seller is and what have they built and what you're actually buying into. Because for me, I'm just the new guy stepping in. The first business I bought was 12 years old. The second one I bought is 42 years old, 43 years old. The previous owner owned it for over 20 years. There's staff there that have been there for over 30 years. So it's, I'm the new guy. Things change. People don't like change. So that's, another pitfall. You can't come in scorched earth and say, I'm just going to change everything. It takes time. As much as you want to try and flip a switch and change everything overnight, it's going to take time. You can't expect things to change quickly, because you're moving something you're trying to move something that's been moving in a direction for so long. That's what you're buying. You got to make sure you're okay with that, with what you're going into, because it's tough to change. One person can't change 30 people overnight.
I'm curious, have you had a situation in one of these businesses where it became apparent, or you had at least a feeling somebody wasn't a fit? They either weren't in the right seat on the bus, or maybe they didn't belong on the bus. How do you go about dealing with that kind of situation? If you feel like somebody is a bad apple, they're toxic, they're not a fit. Any advice on how to handle that situation?
My advice would be that it usually works itself out, because coming in, if the culture fits and there's one bad apple and then there's a changing of guard, that bad apple will most likely remove themselves from the situation, just because they're concerned, they've gotten away with it so long, and they're going to adapt or they're going to move on. And that's what I've found. Thankfully, I haven't had much of that, maybe one or two out of, 60. So it's a good percentage, low percentage, but you're definitely going to have that. But I would say, don't try and force the hand, because then that would reflect poorly upon you and how you're coming into the business. If you came in day 2 and fired 3 people, how do you know? You're quick to judgment in that. So time. It takes time.
We'll get back to the show in a minute, but let me ask you a question real quick. Are you a construction business owner who's stuck working in your business instead of working on it? Do you find yourself caught in the day-to-day grind, answering all the questions, putting out all the fires, struggling to step away because everything seems to depend on you? If that sounds familiar, I want to invite you to watch my free video masterclass, Get Out of Your Construction Business, How to Make It Run Without You, this year. In this free training, you're going to learn a few things: how to get out of the hidden trap that you're probably stuck in that's causing all the chaos. The second thing you'll learn is the forgotten step in every project that's going to help you cut out 80% of the profit bleeds and schedule delays. You'll learn the key steps to be able to delegate effectively, to delegate results to your team so they can handle things without you. Basically, how to build a business that runs smoothly and more profitably without you. Imagine having the freedom to focus your time on high-value work, to be able to take time off, or to be able to grow your business confidently without being stuck in daily chaos. That's what this masterclass is all about. So if you're ready to get out of the day-to-day chaos and firefighting and take your business to the next level, click the link in the show notes to watch my free masterclass now. Get Out of Your Construction Business, How to Make It Run Without You. All right, let's get back to the show. What have you learned about how to combine acquired businesses into an integrated operation?
It's not as easy as one would think. And again, it's taking time because of cultures and even being in the same industry, the two companies I have, the cultures are similar, but the operations are different. And trying to bend people one way or the other is difficult. And because of the situation, me acquiring a competitor, you have to look at it in the sense that when you're competitors in a market, then all of a sudden now you're teammates, that's an interesting dynamic that a lot of people don't understand and can't wrap their head around. Like, oh, wait, you used to be the devil. Now you're sitting next to me. How do I work with you? And and that's where I always say, I'm friendly with my competitors. I don't, that's how I was able to acquire one of my competitors. I became friends with the owner. We're all in the same boat. Let's figure it all out. So I think that's a big piece of it.
That is an interesting situation. We could probably do a deep dive on how to turn from enemies to teammates. If you had it to do over again, if you could go back and make any changes to your most recent acquisition, what would you do differently and why?
Try to understand the inner workings of the business sooner and bring help in quicker. I recently hired a COO to help me with that. I should have done that in the first 3 months, but it was, jumping into a business that's operating, trying to integrate is a lot for one person. So having a team, integration team, if you will, or something like that, I think would be something I would think about a lot more before the next one. Having that team on the ground ready to go and hit the ground running to speed up some things, but also to make it a smoother, cleaner transition. That's what I would do differently in the next one, is having that.
This was a question that came up from one of our CEO Alliance, one of your fellow CEO Alliance members. His question was, how do you know when it's best to grow organically versus grow through acquisition? So you acquired a competitor in the same markets. What was your thought process? I suppose you could have tried to grow organically and you decided to go with acquisition. Can you walk us through that thought process?
Growing organically is a great way of doing business. You have more control. You can pull the levers to grow in the areas you want to or not. That's an option. For me, because the strategic reasoning behind acquiring a competitor, I would not have thought of buying that business if it wasn't for sale. I actually told the seller I wish he would have stuck around a couple more years so I could have been in a better position, having that integration team in place. But he was at an age that he was ready to sell. He wasn't going to wait another couple of years. He, 72 years old. He's, I don't have time to wait. And I wanted to control the market in a sense that I didn't want a 30-year-old kid coming in, buying my competitor and being aggressive, being the Todd or Mark of 30 years old that has a lot more energy and competing against him. I enjoyed competing against the 72-year-old guy who was just comfortable in what he did. We competed well with each other. He had his clients, I had mine. We did, we shared. It worked out well. I was forced sooner than I wanted to be to acquire the next business. And so I think it's tough for me to say. I'm always looking. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people. The thrill of the chase, and people I actually get calls more frequently than I like. People saying, "Hey, are you interested?" And it's timing is everything, and it's I'm more focused now on trying to right the ship that I have now to go to the next step.
Let's shift gears and talk about something that you mentioned before we hit record. You said that every business needs to be designed to be sellable. And we talked about how a lot of construction businesses are unsellable. Why does every business need to be designed to be sellable?
Because one day it will either be sold, it will be handed down to family, or you will leave feet first. So why not design the business to be able to operate without you, or very easily be transitioned to new ownership?
You have a very interesting vantage point. You are a construction business owner, but you have an investor's perspective. So from an investor's perspective, why are so many construction businesses unsellable? In other words, why do they have no value to an investor?
The owner is the business. Once that owner steps away, the business no longer has value. Whether it's they do the sales, they do the typical construction company owner does everything. The first business I owned, I did it all. I did the sales, I did the permitting, I did the contracts, I did all of it. So that business, it was a great lifestyle business, but the buyer of that business would have to be someone similar to myself who's willing to be an owner operator. That's a narrow, limited number of individuals who in their right mind would want to own a construction business. In Southwest Florida, where we just got hit with 3 hurricanes, there's just so many things behind it. You have to be, a little demented or, a risk taker, what have you, to do that. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I think there may be some level of mental illness for all entrepreneurs, especially construction. Yeah, I think something's missing for people who want to get into a construction business. So here's another question. What advice would you have to somebody who thinks they never want to sell their business? Selling their construction business is just not on their radar. Maybe they're early in their career and they're thinking, Todd, Mark, man, I am never going to sell my business. I don't need to worry about that. When that time comes, then I'll burn that bridge when I get there. What advice would you have for that person?
Never say never. I never thought that I would be where I am today because I had a good business prior to this. I had a partnership, things were great, and then they weren't great. We did not plan for that to happen. And that created more stress and problems than anyone should have to go through. So that's, plan for the best, plan for the worst, the whole scenario. And that's whether you sell or not, at least you're in a position to do it. It doesn't mean you have to sell, but having things in place or people in place will help you not have to worry about that. And it should be a concern as a business owner because life will happen, injury, family, you don't know what can happen. If you had to take a month off right now to go take care of a family member and you couldn't focus on your business, what happens to the business? I mean, that's, doesn't mean you have to sell your business, but at least you can step away from it and make sure it still operates. And if you have employees, you have to be worried about those individuals plus their families. I have 55 employees and I worry about their families. Something happens to me and the business fails, there's a lot of people that don't have food on the table. It's a responsibility as a business owner to be in a position, to put the business in a position that it can operate without you, whether it's, for a week, a month, or to be sold.
I had a call with a married couple a few months ago, and they had a small business in Texas, and the wife's parents owned multiple businesses in Colorado, and the parents died in a plane crash. They didn't have any of these systems in place. So this couple in Texas was left having to manage not only their business in Texas, but go clean up this mess and try to manage these businesses in Colorado that had no structure in place. They're built around the owner, and it caused some tremendous stress. The business wasn't sellable. They had all of these obligations that had to be met, contracts that had to be fulfilled, employees, and it put a tremendous amount of strain on the heirs. They were trapped. So even if you think you'll never sell the business, if something happened to you, unfortunately, I've heard of this numerous times in the past few years of construction business owners dying. And then their spouse is left holding the bag and having to clean this mess up while grieving the loss of their spouse. And it's because this short-sightedness. So by the time you need to sell your business or by the time you need to be able to step away from your business, it's too late. If you wait until you're tired and ready to retire and think you could just put a sign up that your business is for sale, it's going to be too late. It's not going to work. If somebody's thinking, okay, I get it, I need to start transitioning my business to make it sellable, what sort of timeline should they be thinking about? Is it months? Is it years? How long should somebody start planning for that, Mark, in your opinion?
I don't think it is a timeline. I think you need to start from the beginning. It's not even, could you get something ready to be sold in 6 months, you could, but you're going to be discounting the value of your business because 6 months isn't enough time. People, an acquirer is going to look at a minimum of 3 years of books and operations to see how things are going. And to get a business running on its own doesn't happen in 6 months. I'm a perfect example of that because I've been in the program with you since August. So I mean, 7 months, and I'm nowhere close to where I want to be to have the business, operating without me or much more without me. It's going to take years. So it's, and the longer you have to do it, the better it'll be, the better your operations will be, and the more valuable your business will be at the end of the day if you do decide to sell or someone has to take it over for you. There's no real time frame. It's, the longer you have, the better.
I completely agree. You put it best. Design it that way from the beginning. Well, I see so many people, frankly, the majority of construction business owners have unintentionally designed their business to fail without them. And it's because they had no real design. There was no blueprint for their business. It was just, let's just get started and make stuff happen. And then we'll hire some people and we grow a little bit and hire some more people, grow a little bit. And then they have this Dr. Frankensteinish type conglomeration that's not really designed. It's all kind of bolted together and it's very dependent on them. And your advice is the best. Start from the beginning, design your business to run without you. That's the easiest way to be able to exit the business, is to design it that way from the beginning. Yeah. You joined our Systematize Your Construction Business program back in August. What sort of challenges were you dealing with that led you to join that program?
It came down to control. Typical business owner, you want control of it when things are going all over the place, not having systems in place, process, everyone's doing things differently, frustration for everyone involved. 3 sales guys doing their contracts proposals differently. So the person dealing with that has to deal with 3 different people. So, organizing that and getting systems in place was a big piece of it. And again, getting into, as the business grows, it just gets more out of control. It's easier to control when there's 1, but when there's 3, 4, 5, and it's growing, it's exponential. It's not 3 times as hard, it's 10 times as hard. So that was a key driver for me, just to say, hey, I need to get things in place here because this could go off the rails very quickly.
We'll get back to the show in just a second. If you're a construction business owner, let me ask you this. Are you feeling trapped in your business? Maybe you can't take a real vacation without being on call 24/7. Or when you finally do step away, there's going to be a mess waiting for you to clean up when you get back. Or maybe the constant stress of putting out fires and carrying all the responsibility and making all the decisions is keeping you up at night. And you're worried about losing a good employee, or it's affecting your health, or worse, it's keeping you from being present with your family. What if instead you could finally step back from the day-to-day chaos, take back control of your time, and build a business that runs profitably and smoothly even when you're not there? If that sounds good, I'd like to invite you to book a free business evaluation call with my team. In just one call, we'll help you get crystal clear on 3 things: the root cause of the biggest problems in your business, the goals and vision you want to achieve for your company and your life, and we'll map out a personalized roadmap you can follow to make that vision a reality. Look, we've helped hundreds of construction business owners systematize their business so they can work less, earn more, and actually enjoy their lives. And we can help you too. But the first step, it's up to you. Head over to constructionleadingedge.com/apply to book your free call, or just click the link in the show notes. Don't wait until it's too late. Take the first step toward freedom today. All right, let's get back to the show. What were you concerned about? What did going off the rails look like in your mind?
Not meeting contractual obligations. So legally, having exposure there, employees being frustrated and not happy and, not wanting to come to work. I want to create an environment where people enjoy coming to work and want to be, want to bring their friends to work for me. And, but if it's every day, it's, people wake up in the morning and like, oh, I got to go back there again. That's not what I want to create. That's what it boils down to. There's a legal side, but there's also the personnel side of it.
You went through the Systematize Your Construction Business program. What did that do for you? What were the results that you experienced from that?
It gave me an outline and the steps to get to where the company needs to be when it comes to P's and, the nail the handoff. We're a little different. We don't have as many choices, but it's also the process of how to get to that point. A good point of the program was bring the team in and make them a part of it so that they have some ownership to it rather than just saying, here, do this. If you bring them in, then it becomes they're part of it. They understand it. They have involvement. Now they are part of it. They have ownership. So if they want to change it, they can do that. I mean, it's, let's tweak it and make it better. It's not, it's not a set thing. It's fluid, and we can adapt it, as we grow and as more people come on board, and it just makes that process better.
How did your team respond to that approach?
It's about time. It was along, taking over a business that, the second one being, 40 years old and people set in their ways and certain things, and knowing everybody knew things had to be changed and done. It was just, again, the seller was to a point in his career, he just didn't want to do it. Just, why would I do this? It's not going to give me any more value, which it would have, but he didn't have the time to put into it or the energy to do it. So, it's just one of those things. Obviously needs to be done. It's just not getting done. So I think they welcomed it, and, making them a part of it was a big piece of it, that okay, so I can tell you what I need? Great. Rather than you saying, this is how to do it. We can work together and figure it all out.
What are some of the measurable indicators of success you've seen with your team since going through the nail the handoff process and getting the team involved? Like what's different? What are some things you can point to with your team that you could say, that's different, that's better than it was before?
Each person a little more, I don't want to call it power, but a little more ability to say, no, that's not how we do it. This is how we do it. You're doing it wrong. We need to get people on track if they're doing it. Just do it quick, do it this way. No. This is how. So giving them the ability to push back if they need to, but it's not a power trip. It's just, this is how we do it. And, field people are different than office people. Everyone has a different personality. You have your type A's and B's. If someone, a bookkeeper is a bookkeeper for a reason. A superintendent is a superintendent for a reason. A superintendent could not be a bookkeeper. Try and put that person on a desk for an hour and forget it. Paperwork is not their thing. But if they know, here's the document you need to fill out, this is how we do it, then it makes it easier for everybody. So they're not getting something different every time or doing it different every time. It's a more fluid, smooth transition.
What would you say were some of the most impactful systems or processes that you put in place as a result of going through the SYCB program?
The whole nail the handoff program, having the meeting, the get together with the Post-it notes and all that was helpful because it made everyone realize they're a part of it. They can help build the system and grow the business and be involved rather than just being told what to do. That was a big piece. And then accountability is a big, big thing. People, this is what you're responsible for, and this is what you need to do. And if you're not doing it, you're going to get called out on it. And that's, a clear understanding of what roles and responsibilities people have. Because if you don't have that, it's just, not my problem. That's, he was supposed to do it, or so-and-so, I didn't know I was supposed to do it. So it's clarity on the roles and responsibilities. So there's, those two key things help smooth out the business as well.
Well, you've been a great implementer. That's a key. It's one thing. We have great tools, great strategies, but you've been a great implementer. So hats off to you for implementing these things, putting them into place so efficiently. Let's talk about the CEO Alliance a little bit. How would you describe the CEO Alliance in your own words, and what has being in that group done for you?
So I think the CEO Alliance for me is just a group of like-minded individuals who have the same issues and problems, maybe a little different, home builders versus marine contractor, but the problems are very similar. And I think just being able to communicate and have conversations with people like that, it helps, because we are kind of in our own little world here, and it's people don't understand what we're going through, right? I don't have any friends that know what I do. They can't really figure it out. They have some type of idea, but they don't know the inner workings of it and what the day to day is like, and how how difficult it can be as an owner of a construction company. I mean, it's not easy. Like you said, you have to have that certain mental break that helps you do it. For me, the CEO Alliance is just a continuation. And back to my point about employees having roles and responsibilities and accountability, I'm being held accountable. And that's a big part of it. As the owner, there's no one above me to say, hey, do this, do that. I can just say, I don't need to do that. But, weekly check-ins, monthly, using the revenue maximizer, all those things, and then being, held to task is a big, big piece because, something shiny, let's go ride bikes. There's all these, as an entrepreneur, you're distracted constantly. So it helps to focus as well. So it's definitely for me, that's what it is. It's more of a, accountability, team, like-minded people, individuals is what works well for me with the CEO Alliance.
So I'm curious, how is life different for you now compared to, say, a year ago? You've gone through the Systematize Your Construction Business program. You're now part of the CEO Alliance. How is life different for you now?
I see more light at the end of the tunnel. And by that, I mean, there will be a day in the not so far future where I can take a month off, take 2 months off, operate my business remotely, and have it in a position to be sold. I don't plan on selling it, but it gives me the opportunity to say all the reasons we spoke about, if I needed to. I've created a business that's either a great lifestyle business or something that's sellable and I can move on to the next adventure. Or I can acquire another business. Who knows? You never know.
Any last bits of wisdom or anything else you'd like to share with the audience, whether it's about setting up your business to sell, pitfalls to avoid, advice on restaurants in your local hometown? Anything else you have for us?
A lot of, and I've heard some people through the programs that, they don't understand that their business is an asset. They've worked hard to build this asset, and it has value. Some people don't even consider selling their business or think of it that way. They've worked their entire life. They're just thinking about getting a paycheck. And meanwhile, they've created this business that, operates, creates revenue, creates a profit that somebody else could come in and buy and run and operate. There's acquisition entrepreneurship is gaining traction. I don't know what the specific statistics are, but most startups fail, right? But if you acquire a existing business, your chances of survival are increased to about 90%. So understand that you have an asset and that, building that business to be sold or handed down, or it could be your retirement. I mean, that's, all of us have a lot of net worth tied into our businesses. So don't sell yourself short and think that you don't have something there, because most of the time you do. And if you build it to get to that point where you can be an absentee owner or someone else can take it over, you're in a much better position, as you get later in life.
What I see from my perspective is I see all of these people who have worked for decades to grow a business that's has potential value. There's a lot of potential wealth there, but it just disappears because the business is not set up to be transferred, because this person has created a job for themselves instead of an asset or a business. Meanwhile, there are people early in their careers who are starting businesses from scratch, the path of most resistance. And it seems like there should be a way that we can connect those two demographics together and say, hey, young, energetic person, you don't have to start a business. Let's find somebody who has an existing business, and there's this platform and this mechanism to transfer that wealth so that it doesn't just dissolve. It's a tragedy to me that so much wealth just disappears. Meanwhile, these people are failing at such a high rate, taking on all sorts of risk, starting a business, and it just doesn't have to be that way. And the key is, let's design the businesses to be sold, transitioned to the next generation, and keep that wealth going. So glad you brought that up. That's great stuff. Mark, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this stuff. If people want to connect with you, find out more about your companies, where should they go?
LinkedIn, email. I can give you my email. I'll put in the show notes. The two companies are Atkin Marine Services and Custom Dock and Davit, both located in Sarasota, Florida. The best restaurant for you, Todd, and what I would recommend here in Sarasota would be probably Owen's Fish Camp.
Owen's Fish Camp?
Yep.
Got it. And what's the best cocktail? What's your go-to cocktail or the best cocktail to get at that place?
Well, I'm a beer guy because I own a brewery, so I'm a beer guy. So I would get a local craft beer. The Scamp here, the grouper, is phenomenal. So that's what I would recommend.
Sounds great. Thanks again, Mark. Look forward to seeing you at our events in Miami next week. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Todd. It was great.
And hope you enjoyed that episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for more details over at constructionleadingedge.com/podcast. And if you get value out of this podcast, would you do me a favor? Would you please leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify? And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you own a construction business and you feel stuck or you feel like you're spending too much time in day-to-day firefighting, maybe dealing with all of the problems, if everything's stuck in your head, or if you just don't feel like you have time or energy to work on your business because you feel like you're stuck working in it, if you want your business to run without you so you can take a vacation, or maybe to be able to sell your business one day, or if you just frankly want the business to survive if something happens to you, then there are 4 crucial systems that you need to have in place. Number 1, if you're a home builder, remodeler, or commercial general contractor, you have to get paid for estimates. Those free estimates are killing your bottom line, sucking the life out of you. And you can get all the tools you need to get paid for estimates, the templates, sales scripts, pricing guidance, and let's face it, the confidence that you need. You can get all of that for free right now over at constructionleadingedge.com/start. You'll get the entire Get Paid for Estimates masterclass. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/start. You can get all of that for free. The second crucial system is that you need to design your business for the future. You need to establish the major functions of your business and the results that each function is accountable for. You need to have clearly defined roles and responsibilities. This is the foundation of every successful business, and the best way to do that is to design your accountability chart for the future. Number 3, you need to design and document your process to nail the handoff from the office to the field. This is a very disciplined and documented process that maps out every step of the pre-construction process. Look, companies that are good construction companies are actually good pre-construction companies. They're good pre-construction companies. And when you design your nail the handoff process and you have this in place, this is going to eliminate 80% of the profit bleeds and the schedule delays and chaos on your job sites. And you'll also need to learn the secret sauce for getting your team to actually implement and follow a process. Number 4, the 4th crucial system are the leadership systems that your team will use to convert your goals into reality. Look, somebody needs to be planning tomorrow's work today. Someone needs to be doing a 2-week look ahead. Someone needs to be establishing the most important things for the next 6 to 8 weeks. And you need to be having regular team meetings that are actually functional. Those are your leadership systems. And if you would like our help putting those crucial systems in place in your business so that your business can run without you, so you can get out of day-to-day firefighting and take that firefighter hat off, or if you want to be able to sell your business one day, here's the next step. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply and schedule a free business evaluation call with our team. On that call, we're going to do a few things. We'll help you uncover the real root causes of your problems. Number 2, help you get clear on your objectives that you want to accomplish. And then number 3, to map out a plan to make it a reality. We'll also share with you some of the things that our construction business owner clients are doing to accomplish their goals and solve the problems that you're probably dealing with. And then if you're a fit, it looks like we have a good mutual fit. We'll discuss our Systematize Your Construction Business program. So to schedule your free business evaluation, head on over to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY. Hey, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.